It's professional wrestler Colt Boom Boom Cabana, and you are watching WrestleTalk. Congratulations, you got here. Now subscribe and support. Thanks.
Support WrestleTalk!
How much money will WWE lose because of WrestleMania and they're being sued? As if there's not enough stuff going on in the world right now. I'm Ollie Davis from a remote location. I'm joined by Luke Owen from a remote location. Please press the thumbs up button. Give us a subscribe. We're still here. We're still making goddamn consistent content for you lovely viewers at home, the SWAF Nation, the people who make it all worth it. Let's get in to some numbers chat. I feel like this is the theme of the Friday episode. It's always a bit of, always a bit of numbers.
It certainly has been for the last little while because there's been so much like money chat. We had the quarterly report from WWE, one of your favorite weeks of the whole year, and you get them 4 times a year as well. But now with all of this Steve Corino stuff, there is, questions over whether WrestleMania will happen. And now that it is going to happen, but possibly over multiple days in multiple locations, how much money they're actually going to lose on this venture.
Yeah, so this report comes from WrestleNomics, and while there will be savings, sure, because you're not going to put on that big elaborate stage, you're not going to have to get loads of crew, hundreds. It's an amazing logistical feat to put on something as grandiose as WrestleMania. But I imagine a lot of that set was already built and paid for. It's not like they're waiting until the week of the show and then go, we better knock together this ridiculously large screen. Or Battleship. What was the original plan for WrestleMania 36?
I believe there was going to be a giant pirate ship on the set, as part of the set, kind of like how they had the theme park rides, like the big roller coaster for Mania 33.
Coronavirus has taken that from us.
And you've said the word now.
Oh no, the pirate ship. Whose entrance is gonna factor into that?
Well,
what was Pyro going to shoot from cannons on the side?
Of course it was. Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely would have been. And I really think that Becky's big truck that she had on Monday was definitely going to be part of her big Mania entrance.
That's since been confirmed, actually.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. I can't remember who reported it. But imagine, I don't know whose entrance they would have done it for. I bet Roman's. Triple H's, because he would have still... let's say it was the big dogs. He comes out, he wins, of course. He's Blue Universal Champion on your bike, Goldberg, because I'm on my big pirate ship. And you get the big pyro celebration. And then they raise the flag. And the flag...
It's got a picture of a big dog on it.
Just a fist smashing through the pirate flag. But we're not going to get any of that.
I'm gonna up the ante slightly. I think he would have done his big, Superman pose where he punches into the ground, but would have been onto one of those weighted things like you get at carnivals, where you punch it down and that raises the flag up, almost like Super Mario Brothers.
I love it. Yeah, but unfortunately, we're not going to see any of that. We're going to see a much lower scale version of that, but a cheaper version, but not cheap enough, because WrestleNomics is they're a fantastic they're a Twitter account mainly. They really dive in deep to the financials, and they said that the live gate, so the 70,000 people who would have gone to the Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, that would have drawn $15 million.
Oh, that's a lot of millions.
Let's add the 4 million of live gate for like Raw, SmackDown, NXT, the stuff around WrestleMania. 3 million is expected in revenue merch, and it's that all that together is about 22 million that WWE are losing on this.
And network subs, because you've got to imagine that with the show not being the big grand spectacle that it is, that some people just might not be interested. We've had comments left on our videos, and we've had people get in touch with us on social media channels that have said, if it's not going to be the big grand WrestleMania, they're not going to bother watching because they can't get into the sort of no fans aspect of it.
It's fascinating, and David Starr was telling me this the other day, how we're friends with wrestlers now.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how this has become the great leveler. Like WWE, they've always been half production, really. The wrestling isn't that great when you look at the grand scheme of things. The promos are goddamn awful, but they've got that big arena feel. They've got the big Titantron. When you think wrestling, a lot of people think the sports entertainment of WWE. But now that you can't have the fans and that level of production, it has leveled all of these promotions out, where I would argue our No Fans Monday was better as a broadcast than what WWE put out.
Hey man, I thought it was maybe a little bit better than AEW, but like just ever so slightly, because we had Kalin versus David Starr. You mentioned that your best friend David Starr, but
sorry, I shouldn't have brought him up in front of you. How is
yes,
the neck?
It's better. But I thought, the doctor's advice was to try and take the neck brace off a little bit. I think what he said was you're over-egging the pudding. And I was like, well, I disagree. My medical background says that I probably should keep it on a little bit more. But they said, you know what, just take it off for a couple of days. And yeah, they were right. Actually, it is much better now. It's
gotta go safety first.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But it's not just WrestleMania and the amount of money that you're going to lose there. Coronavirus has, of course, just ravaged the economy and sort of facilitated a supercharged economic crash that we're living through right now. And to be frank, we're 4 years overdue for an economic crash because they roughly happen every 8 years. And the last one was in 2008. And the way the global economy got around it is they artificially pumped in money to stop that happening again. A good idea, but there was a school of thought that said, but when something does go wrong, it's really going to go wrong because you've put up so much, the bubble has become so big. And that's exactly what happened. Coronavirus was like this needle that stabbed right into the heart of that bubble. And it's awful that's happened to everything. Of course, we're going to put out the proviso. We are only talking about this within the confines of wrestling. We know there's a lot more serious stuff. But for wrestling, the stock is down 25% year to date. And if you count it for just this year, it's down 63% in the past year. So it's the WWE stock is the lowest it's been in over 2 years, which is January 2018. And that was before the Fox deal, before all of that stuff that they announced. That's bad times.
Yeah, and the Saudi deal, right? Because the Saudi deal started in 2018. So like there's a lot of money that's come into this company quite recently. And actually Meltzer was talking about this in this week's Observer. He was talking about, I'll give you the direct quote here. There was talk last week of delaying WrestleMania until July or June. And while that may be earlier than everything is contained, there is no guarantee that date would be viable. Delaying the show until you have a large gathering seemed like the obvious solution. At this point, you really have to question Vince McMahon with the idea of giving up revenue of 20 million or more and allowing fans to see the biggest event of the year live. Many have. We're told that we're told there is so much uncertainty, and the fact that with no sure timetable, he made the call that he did. It was a shocking call because it removes the fan and the spectacle from the show, which is really what WrestleMania is all about.
Yeah, so people tune in. People don't really, they do. They obviously do tune in for the matches. But a huge part of WrestleMania is how many fake people are they going to announce in the attendance?
Well, they'll still do that this year.
Yeah. Record-breaking crowds.
Well, they count the crew and wrestlers. So, they can count those people. There will be at least 50.
Just spread across multiple locations. But the entrances, all the pomp and circumstance. So, we haven't really spoken about this. You're in Vince's position. What do you do with WrestleMania?
Wrestling is it's a weird bubble, isn't it? Because we've talked about sort of, other sports, actual sports like football and the XFL and the NFL and all these sorts of sports. They can just stop their games. Them stopping their games isn't actually going to hurt anything. They can just delay them until another time. But wrestling, you're telling stories, and your stories they have an end date. And what WWE would then have to do is try and artificially extend that end date. And I am almost with Vince on this one. In fact, I am with Vince on this one. I think you stay the course. What AEW showed on Wednesday's show is that just moving ahead as you originally planned can still make for a great show. they didn't just put on archive stuff. They didn't just show Double or Nothing in like sort of clip format. They had the debuts of Brody Lee. They had Broken Hardy show up. They continued their build to Blood and Guts, which in theory is next week. So yeah, I think I probably would have continued. I would have just done the same shows that I was always planning on doing, but just with no fans in the arena.
Yeah, you tweak it a bit, don't you?
Yeah.
You got to freshen up the style of wrestling so it's a style that works more with no fans. So very tight, very slick, hard-hitting style. So just, let Daniel Bryan and Cesaro just carry on wrestling. But and I do agree with you, you need to pay off these storylines because Goldberg is not a long-term champion.
No.
There's a lot of things like, John Cena's not going to be around when movie production shoots start up again.
Nope.
So you do need to get these matches out of the way, as it were. My question, maybe I should have phrased it more clearly, is do you do that at WrestleMania? Or do you just put those matches on your Raw, on your SmackDown? Because WrestleMania is a huge brand name. So
yeah, okay.
That's the big thing. Like WrestleMania, when it happens, it could happen in June, it could happen in September. I don't think people are going to care because it's WrestleMania that's the draw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. In that sense, I'll agree with you on that one because I kind of talked about this in the news episode I did the other day. I think it was on Wednesday, where I was talking about how the WrestleMania card is, was supposed to be 16 matches and it's now been shortened to 8 matches, potentially 9 if you do have that Kabuki Warriors title defense. But I would just do those matches on Raw and SmackDown. You continue Braun and Sammy, but you do that on a SmackDown show and you kind of build these sort of like, the SmackDown in 3 weeks is going to have this big main event, and it's going to be Braun finally getting his hands on Sami Zayn for the IC title. And you do stuff for the Raw and SmackDown tag titles and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, you do the same thing with your Goldberg Reigns feuds, which would do great ratings. That match would do. Same for Cena Fiend. Same for Brock and Drew. And then when the situation has changed and we are all allowed to go back out into public arenas, you then do WrestleMania. You just do it it's weird because you don't want to say you do it in place of SummerSlam, but maybe you do it in place of SummerSlam.
Yeah, I think of the two, WrestleMania's got far more name recognition than Summerfest. I can't even remember what it's called most of the time. But yeah, I that's what I think. And I guess if people are saying, well, you don't know if there's going to be a Raw or SmackDown in a couple of weeks, that's what they're planning on doing. They're planning on taping all of Raw and SmackDown next week, and WrestleMania potentially. So just do all that, but don't put it on WrestleMania.
Yeah, we're going to find out like WrestleMania spoilers like ahead of time. If people leak it out, we're going to find out that John Cena does beat The Fiend.
Oh, God damn it. You'd expect that, when there's only, I bet if there's only 8 people involved in that match, it's still going to leak.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? Telegram, Telewrestler. Yeah. So that's not the only financial hit that's happening to WWE at the moment. We've had the WrestleMania, all that live gate being taken away from them. There's the financial crash that's ongoing, that's affecting the share price amongst Vince McMahon's direct actions of getting rid of George Barrios and Michelle Wilson a few months ago. But
before we do that, we should point out that WWE are cash rich. Like that's one of the other thing that Meltzer wrote about in the Observer, said most companies are struggling on the budgets that they've got. We've seen, the companies that are about to cancel shows like WrestleCon said that this could effectively bankrupt them, not being able to put on WrestleCon this year. But Meltzer writes, WWE is cash rich with $500 million in cash on hand. So of all the combat sport companies, they are in the best shape. So I don't some people might read what we're saying wrongly, where we're not saying that WWE is in trouble here because they're going to lose 20 million. They are fine. Like their stock price is low, but as a company they are fine.
Yeah, I find it really interesting. The wording is they're the most cash rich of all the combat sports companies. That includes UFC. Yeah. WWE are more cash rich than UFC. And I think here's my prediction. It's quite an obvious one. a lot of indie promotions are going to get bought by WWE to either remove them from the playing field, get their footage libraries, just the IP in general. Maybe that becomes part of the network. It's a super indie service. And a lot of guys are going to get signed to deals as well, other wrestlers.
Some people may just have to take those deals. There's people that might have previously turned down NXT UK deals, talking about the British scene, might reconsider them down the line because it's guaranteed income.
But yeah, all that stuff's going on. And on another front, WWE are being sued by like 3 different people. This is something that's been bubbling away for a few weeks. I keep trying to write it up in my news, but a billion other things happen that are more pressing. But there are 2 different lawsuits at the moment at WWE, specifically over how they allege WWE has essentially lied to their investors.
Yeah, and there were some people that I think there was one group that was suing them because like Wilson and Barrios sold a lot of their stocks, and a lot of other like Triple H and Stephanie sold a lot of their stocks prior to Barrios and Wilson going. So they knew that there was going to be a drop once those 2 left. So they almost like cashed in on stocks ahead of the game. And then there are other people who have been investing who were not aware of what the game was going to be, who were then left out of pocket, essentially. So there's being suing over that. There was another group that's suing them over the XFL and whether or not Vince selling his stock to get money so we can build the XFL, which is, part owned by WWE, is within the best interests of the investors that have got money within WWE. That's kind of like, they consider to be their future.
Yeah, that's the important wording there. It's the best interests of WWE. Vince McMahon, sure, does work for... It feels like he works for Vince McMahon, and technically he does because he has the majority of the shares. But really, he works for the shareholders, and that includes all the people who have, however many. So if you do something that's not in the best interests of those shareholders, and I would argue selling off a load of your stock when you think something's going to happen, maybe, allegedly, and also starting a new venture that's going to massively impact the time you can put into your current company, that is significant, and there is an argument there. I don't know if it's one that will hold up against WWE's lawyers, but it's not like the concussion lawsuit, which was a bit of a cash grab, and the third one, which does seem to be a bit all over the place.
Yeah, this is 100%. So they're also being sued by a patent company over the WWE network. But David Bixenspan at Forbes, he wrote up a brilliant article about this, essentially calling it a pointless endeavor in so many words, because this group, essentially this group are claiming that because WWE Network's a streaming service, that infringes on their patent, because they claim they invented the patent of the streaming service, when actually their patent started in 2011 and there were streaming services that predated. Essentially, what their claim is, just like, well, that's a streaming service, so we're suing you because you ripped off our idea. Even though, apparently what they're called patent trolls. An Electronic Frontier Foundation describes that as a patent troll uses patents as legal weapons instead of actually creating new products or coming up with new ideas.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on there. Is that just
that'll get thrown out? That'll 100% get thrown out, because as soon as you look at like the fact that there are so many, like, you could sue Disney Plus, or this group could sue Disney Plus if they wanted to, because they claim they've got patent on it, but they technically haven't.
Yeah, it's not a nice headache to have. Even little legal things, it just does nag away at your head. Hey, have you read WrestleTalk.com recently?
Well, I mean, I check it almost every half hour, every 20 minutes if I can.
You and pretty much all the wrestling news consumers out there, we are the third biggest wrestling news site in the world. People think I thought we were just a YouTube channel. and Andy, who's the sort of editor-in-chief of WrestleTalk.com, he just, we were talking about it last month, and he's like, we're pretty big now. And we worked out how big it was. And we're like, oh my God, we are. Awesome. Yeah. But because of those numbers, and because he is an excellent human being and a former host of WrestleTalk, no less, Marty Skell did an interview with us, with Louis Danger Dangor.
What a great writer he is.
Yeah. And yeah, it was a really interesting interview. Go over to WrestleTalk.com to check it out. but it's got a few interesting tidbits in there.
Yeah, so the first one is about All Elite Wrestling because, there were reports that once his ROH contract was up, that he was likely going to join All Elite Wrestling. And Marty talks about that as the quote says, "I'm sure most expected me to go to AEW. And of course, Matt and Nick, the Young Bucks, are two of my best friends in the whole entire world. I love them and I love what they're doing. I'm very proud of them. When it comes to my decision, though, I, like them, had my own vision, my own dreams, and the opportunity to create a promotion in my own vision was something I always wanted and couldn't turn down. I have a great relationship with Tony, Cody, and Kenny, and it's cool that we're all doing our own things and making a splash in the wrestling world." So that's in reference to when he signed or re-signed with Ring of Honor. He was given essentially the keys to the kingdom. They said, it's almost your promotion now. Like, he's the one who's building the ties back with New Japan. He's the one who is, he put on that free show for everyone to come and attend to. So I think in the way that Marty's looking at this, it's his company now.
And in the interview, he does name check a few people, like next potential projects. And what struck me is that AEW, when they launched, they had, the Young Bucks and Cody, because he did the indie scene extensively in the years after he left WWE, precluding setting up AEW. And they must know the American indie scene very, very well, because all of a sudden, here's Jungle Boy, here's Wardlow, here's MJF. I'd never heard of any of these guys before AEW, and I consider myself pretty looped in. But what Marty has is that connection and knowledge of the British wrestling scene, which, as many people would have hopefully seen on Monday with No Fans Monday, it's bloody stacked.
Yeah, it really is.
Do you know who? Did you see who he name checked?
I did indeed. Yeah, they were talking about, like, Louis asked him, are there any people on the indie circuit that you'd like to, pick up into ROH? And he name dropped one of my favorite tag teams in wrestling at the moment, Aussie Open, who are unfortunately, Davis is injured at the moment, so Kyle Fletcher's doing his own sort of like singles run. But when Dunkzilla is back and those two reform, they're an incredible tag team. They were booked for the Ring of Honor UK tour last year, and they were on Royal Quest. You and I, and we were talking with Andy and Pete, being like, man, I really hope New Japan are paying attention, because this is a team that you can do so much with this team. They're an incredible act.
Yeah, well, that New Japan Ring of Honor link is something obviously Marty's working on. But man, as Aussie Open, you were a bigger fan than I was. Not that I wasn't a fan, but but Carl Fletcher has put on so much size, because he was very lanky last year. And that's when I've seen him. Not that, still far larger than us, but he was the tall guy. Seeing him on Monday in that incredible match against Connor Mills, the guy moves like a heavyweight now.
Yeah.
When Dunkzilla's probably going to have look small now by comparison.
Because Fletcher and Mills beat the ever-loving F out of each other. And actually, we were there for also his incredible singles match with Jordan Devlin at Super Strong Style last year, with one of my favorite finishes, where the big double headbutt spot. So Kyle Fletcher's incredible. And so I'm unsurprised that Marty's almost got them on his radar.
Yeah, but go over to WrestleTalk.com and check that out, because it's a really interesting interview, and we're trying to do more. We're trying to, now with the website growing, we want to do more in-depth stuff like that. Yeah. Hey, Luke, it's Raiden's War. Hallelujah, it's a Raiden's War.
Yep, even though, coronavirus, I've said the word now. It's, it's ruining a lot of things. It's canceling a lot of shows. There were still shows on Wednesday, and therefore there were ratings. But it's not as, it's not really the same ratings war that it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. This is a very different ratings war now, because NXT put on no matches. And, they made it pretty clear early doors, prior, to the show going out and when the show started, that there were going to be no matches. It was just video packages, essentially. And that did just over 500,000 viewers, for 542,000 to be exact, which is, a big decline from the previous weeks, but that's almost to be expected. AEW, on the other hand, did their live show and carried on as normal and had a big growth. They had a 21% bump in their ratings, drawing 932,000. Because a lot of people the sort of speculation was last week they lost a lot in that 18 to 49 demo because they were watching the news and watching Trump's announcements about the Steve Corino stuff. So with not so much that now in the background, people are still watching the news and watching, daily updates on it. They were going back to wrestling. And so we saw this big 21% increase for AEW viewership and a 35% increase in the 18 to 49 demographic.
The all-important
demographics, yeah. So a big night for AEW and NXT, but kind of as we talked about in the AEW review yesterday, it almost feels like ratings are immaterial at the moment.
I mean, yeah, of course they are, but look, if NXT put on an actual show in front of no fans, just like AEW did, the rating would have been higher. If we're looking at I know there's bigger things, and if you think, oh well, Ollie's going too down there, so be it. I don't care. If you're looking at just the numbers, what will make the most interesting wrestling show that people want to tune into? AEW made a choice, and they made the better choice. Yeah. I think it's quite transparent now that putting on that style of wrestling, a style of wrestling that NXT does very well.
Among the best in the world.
Yeah, they're far more adept at that than Raw and SmackDown because that's their product. That's what the viewers expect, and it's a style that works a lot better without any fans in attendance. And apparently WWE was scrambling until the very last minute, like an hour before the show went live. They were still putting together some of those video packages, excellent video packages, but it wasn't any matches. And that seems to be because WWE just decided wrestling doesn't work without fans. Yeah. And then AEW come out and quite emotionally proved that it does. And Cody says people need entertainment. They need drama. They need tears. They need joy right now. And yeah, I know people are saying let's not look at this as a war because people don't want to think about such conflict during these trying times. But my mind does go there. And I think this is a quite clear victory for AEW and their approach.
Yeah,
WWE made the same mistake 3 times. If we're looking at it from the quality of a wrestling product, they did the wrong thing on SmackDown, they did the wrong thing on Raw, and they did the wrong thing again on NXT.
And they're just reducing it bit by bit. SmackDown had 3-4 matches. Raw had 4 minutes of actual on-air television. And people could say like, well, the match was longer. They wrestled during the commercial break. They likely didn't. The international broadcast of SmackDown showed that when the commercial break happened, they just stopped and then, just picked it back up sort of, 10 seconds before they went back on air. So we got 4 minutes of wrestling on Raw. I'm just going to move my hand a bit more so people can actually see that on camera. 4 minutes of wrestling. And then on NXT, you got no minutes of wrestling. So I'd be so intrigued to see what happens with SmackDown tonight and whether we are going to see this pattern now where it's just in-ring interviews and it's video packages and that's it. But, they did say there's that report that they are doing this big taping schedule, so they are clearly going to do matches.
Daniel Bryan and Nakamura, those 2 guys off the top of my head who could go. Sami Zayn there as well.
There's loads of guys.
Gable.
WWE have got the greatest talent roster in the entire world because they've spent the last 5 years hoovering up all the best talent in the world. They have the most stacked roster of any company, probably in the history of pro wrestling. They could quite easily put on amazing shows with no fans in attendance, but they have chosen not to.
If you want to submit a question to the mailbag, all you've got to do is become one of our awesome pledge hammers on Patreon at any dollar amount and leave a comment in the community tab labeled mailbag. Do not email me, I will just lose it. This looks very different to the start of this show, but hey, we'll just roll with it, hey?
Let's do that.
I was going to say, there's no edit point there.
Let's do that.
Our first question comes in from Jonathan, the Headmaster Headman, who says, good appropriate time of day, gentlemen. I figured equal time for a music band question.
Ooh.
Like, in my opinion, Faith No More's album, The Real Thing, is their best. To be fair, I haven't listened to the others lately and will do so shortly, and I only have up to Album of the Year. I wish I could get my hands on the UK only, the very best definitive ultimate greatest hits collection for those B-sides. Anyway, what is your favourite album and song? P.S. I also love The Perfect Crime from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, but Falling to Pieces is probably my favourite song from them. That or We Care a Lot. An excellent question, Jonathan Headman. So relevant to our times. Let's all just talk about Faith No More and how they are the greatest band to grace this planet.
I feel like you are Jonathan Headman, and this is a long con. You've been emailing him for years about wrestling stuff, and now you're going to turn it into Faith No More talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time, really.
So, favourite album or song is the question.
What's your favourite album and song?
Or not just favourite Faith No More album?
No, I mean, we could talk about specifically that if you want.
I would say, I mean, it changes all the time, obviously. Favourite album ever, Pinkerton by Weezer. Favourite song is El Scorchio from Weezer. So I'd choose a different one, Life on Mars by David Byrne.
Oh, what a wonderful, perfect choice. I am going to go with a Faith No More album. I'm going to go with Angel Dust, which I do think is Faith No More's best output. But for favourite track, not one that is off the Angel Dust album. Because I'm actually going to agree with Jonathan Headman. Falling to Pieces is my favourite song. It's my favourite Faith No More song. But I suppose my favourite song ever is probably The Touch by Stan Bush from the Transformers movie. It's a perfect
It's a good
song.
shout. It's a
Great shout. Right, what have we got next? This one comes in from Adam, who says, hello, Wrestle Talkers and Wrestle Twerkers. Adam Nicholson here, long-time supporter, first-time mailbagger. You may remember me from events such as Wrestling Media Con, where you and some other Wrestle Talk lads did a wrestle thing. Ollie lost his snazzy jacket, then you did a Fandango dance. Oh, and I believe there were some segues involved. Anyway, I digress. I wanted to ask if you would be so kind as to donate my Patreon to the Brit Rest Fund this month. I don't have lots of money and I enjoy your content and love to support WrestleTalk every month. This month, would you be so kind as to take one of my month's contributions and deliver it to the performers and crew who put on such amazing events and deserve all our love and admiration. Lots of love from Adam in Manchester. And there's a picture of Adam.
Ah, with us.
With us.
I remember you, yes.
From Wrestling Media Con.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that and we'll add it to the pot.
Indeed. That guy who wants to support. Actually, I'm going to do a cut there. The next one comes in from Ket, who said, what's up, WrestleTalk? Do you prefer the barred or fence steel cage? To me, the barred cage looks like a children's playpen, while the fence steel cage looks more believable. Thoughts?
It's weird, isn't it? Because the thought of climbing the mesh, I always think of it as the mesh cage as opposed to the fence cage, makes me recoil in horror.
Yeah.
But climbing that blue bar,
so much
easy,
fun. Big
easy.
blue.
I want to jump on it. But what do I want to be thrown into more? Do I want to be thrown into the really solid, unforgiving bars or the quite bendy, forgiving mesh?
The soft mesh. The cushiony mesh.
Everyone knows. You could sleep on that mesh. It's like the Elimination Chamber rubber floor.
Yeah. As well, like
it's Eve mattresses.
Undertaker was trying, not the wrestling promotion.
Yes.
Undertaker was actually trying to help Mick Foley go to sleep by chokeslamming him onto the mesh. Just unfortunately, the structure was a bit unstable and he ended up falling through it.
Yeah. But which one do you prefer? I don't know. I mean, I've grown up on the mesh, to be honest. I think I prefer that one.
Yeah, I kind of prefer it as well.
But I do, it's not to discount the blue bar because it's really got a vibrant colour to it and it brings something new. But you can have both. Why don't you just call it something different, like a bar cage? I don't know.
A bar cage?
You can't call it a steel cage because they're both steel cages.
Yeah.
Well, how do you differentiate the big blue?
Call it Big Blue?
No,
I challenge
rubbish.
you to a Big Blue match.
Who in the big blue hell are you?
Do you know what? I mean, I love the mesh cage, but you know what would improve it? Painting it red. Nate Simpson asks, since the Fiend always changes his opponents, will there be a change to finally see a heel John Cena after he returns from whatever movie he is off to film?
Well, let's think about the Fiend's opponent. So yes, Finn Balor.
Has gone heel to
sent
NXT.
him down to NXT. Daniel Bryan, he didn't change.
But he went more heelish than he was prior to going up against the Fiend.
No. He was full on eco heel.
Yeah, and then
Up
he was
until
pure,
the end of August.
yeah, and then he was pure babyface.
No, he was not pure babyface. He was tweener babyface.
Bearing in mind, this is all a fan theory. That,
Yes.
And if you face the Fiend or you have a feud with the Fiend, you turn heel because Rollins also turned heel, Miz also turned heel, Goldberg turned heel on the fans. So, maybe there is some weight to this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess, like the incidental people like Jerry Lawler or Mick Foley.
Yeah.
Kane, did he take out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those people, they weren't feuds. They were just, I'm going to finger your mouth for a bit. Yeah. It's literally what happened.
It is what happened.
It's literally what happened.
Micah says, hello, WrestleTalk crew. A new Patreon here. Been a fan since it was just Ollie, and Adam was on another channel. And it's great to see how the channel has grown. My question is, what's your favorite wrestling urban legend? For example, mine is how Vince McMahon has fired people for sneezing in front of him. It's utterly ridiculous. What's yours?
Well, you go first, because you're a fountain of urban legends for wrestling.
I don't know, but all the ones that I know are all the dirty ones that we can't really talk about on this show.
You can talk about the poop one.
The poop one?
The Vince McMahon poop one.
Yeah, okay. For a second, I thought you meant the 1, 2, 3 poop one, where it's like, I don't know who pooped in Mark Henry's sandwich. So, it's not an urban legend though, is it? Because someone has said this is a story that happened. But the story goes that JR once farted in a car and it smelt so bad that it made Gerald Briscoe throw up. Vince McMahon found this story to be the funniest thing he's ever heard, so spent the entire day trying to fart in front of Jerry Briscoe so he would then throw up again. But tried so hard that he crapped his pants and then had to go out and do a segment. Also, Jerry Briscoe didn't throw up.
He's the head of the company.
He's a billionaire.
So I didn't do that, but a week ago I had to dress up as AJ Lee in the short denim hot pants and the crop top and dance around Stratford, which is where we're based. And I did have a moment where I thought, I'm everyone's bosses. And I'm doing this. Yeah. I don't think Vince ever had that thought. I didn't think he ever thought, crap my pants, pal.
Yeah, it's like, puke, puke. So I'm not sure if that counts as an urban legend. As I said, all the urban legends that I know, because there's a fantastic, you can still find it. Raven and the Honky Tonk Man go through that 100-point list of wrestling's greatest urban legends. But all of them are too filthy for this show that we cannot talk about, I'm afraid. Flame Inc. Live said, the Saudi Prince learns about New Japan, AEW, and WrestleTalk and forces the boys at WrestleTalk to book him a 5-match show with WWE. What 5 interbrand matches would you have?
Well, first off, obligatory, we would not engage in business relationships with that country for anything under 2 million, I would say.
Oh, I'd have gone way higher.
You're going to go higher.
Yeah, I'm going to go... Tyson Fury made millions upon millions for that one match.
Tyson Fury is literally 4 of us.
And there are 4 of us.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe we should. We're selling ourselves short here.
Completely.
So interbrand matches, essentially between all the companies. Can I pick people who aren't currently active? Because there's been some Twitter activity recently between CM Punk and Will Ospreay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd very much like that match.
I would like that match.
I mean, Flaming Live is not, because he's got the Fiend versus Shibata.
Wow. I mean, I don't think that match would work.
Yeah. He's also got Omega versus Ziggler, which I find to be a very, if you're going to have, Kenny Omega on your show, in an interbrand match against anyone in WWE, probably the last person I'm picking is Dolph Ziggler.
Unless it's a hair straightening match. Because I know who's going to win. It's going to be Dolph.
Yeah.
He looks beautiful with straightened hair.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
But it's wavy. Kenny's got curly hair. Oh, Dolph Ziggler's hair straightened. It's beautiful.
I'm taking you off track though. We need to book matches here.
Oh my God. So yeah, the obvious one is Daniel Bryan Okada. I just think of those two wrestling. That would be insane.
John Cena, Tanahashi.
Yes. Samoa Joe versus Ishii.
There it is. That's the one, mate. That's the one.
Suzuki they're just coming to me now. I'm like a conduit for ridiculous wrestling matches. Suzuki versus Orange Cassidy. It's the match that's not going to be able to happen.
I know, right? Yeah, but that is
One
the match.
day.
That is the match you want to do right there. Yeah, go. Would you want to do one more?
No.
No. Okay. Marcel has got in touch to
Hey,
say,
Marcel.
Hey guys, greetings from my social isolation. Hope you're doing just fine. This mail is more of a comment than a question. I just wanted to say that I don't want Drew McIntyre to win the title from Brock at WrestleMania anymore. Don't get me wrong, I was all for a Drew mega push, but that all stopped when he killed the pet rat of Rowan on live TV. No matter how ugly or whatever pet it is, that's the most heelish thing you can do, and now Drew is ruined as a babyface for me. What a stupid decision.
I think that's an extreme interpretation of events, because if people were invested in that obviously fake animatronic spider, then I would agree with you. But the whole point was that they weren't, and it became a symbol of WWE's really crappy booking. So Drew wasn't killing a real-life pet of someone. He was killing this thing that no one believed in. I'm not saying that doesn't work, because like Jericho and Dean Ambrose, now Jon Moxley, they got over a goddamn potted plant.
Yeah.
When Jericho smashed Mitch, I had genuine feels.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that way about the spider.
No, and that's it. It was essentially, that was a representation of bad booking. So to have Drew go out to be the guy that did it was such a smart call, to have it be mega babyface Drew McIntyre. But it is, like, I was just being very facetious when I was talking about it. I was like, in the kayfabe world, he did kill someone's pet, which is, you know, it's a pretty awful thing to do. But in the sort of the wider context, I think it's quite clear what they were aiming for. Kieran Ryan, dear Luke and Ollie, first email and all fellow Scousers like Luke himself, do you not think they should have some actual wrestlers for a crowd at WrestleMania? Be better than having them do the Battle Royal, and would at least add to the hype of the atmosphere. So we're talking about wrestlers being around the ring.
Yeah, well, we saw on AEW that can work. It's just whether that's practical. One of the reasons WWE have said that they're going to shoot WrestleMania from multiple locations over multiple nights is so you can segment people and crew off into their little own isolation pods, really.
Yeah, that way you can still have your 16-match card.
Oh, my God.
But, you know, maybe it'll just be 2 nights of 8. Rather than, or maybe they'll do 2 nights of 16. Who knows? Joe says, hey boys, just a question for you all. What blockbuster movie that came out in your lifetime have you not seen? For me, the answer is Titanic. Anywho, have a great day. Much love from Canada, who definitely use Fahrenheit as their measurement of temperature.
Blockbuster. I've seen all the movies. So I can't.
I've actually seen every movie.
I've seen all the movies. Titanic's a weird one, though.
Yeah.
You should have seen that, just for the zeitgeist.
Yeah, I went to the pictures to go see that movie.
I haven't seen 1917 yet.
No, I haven't seen that. I mean, I'm going to go out on the record here. I've not seen any Fast and Furious movie past Too Fast, Too Furious. I've not even seen Tokyo Drift, mate.
You've got to get through 2 more movies, and then they get really good.
Yeah.
It's like, you've got to watch 80 episodes, and then somewhere at the end of season 3, it gets all right.
Yeah, the first series of The Wire is really rubbish, but if you manage
It's
to get
not!
through it... I'm just saying that's what has been told to me.
The first series is amazing.
I got dibs. With Mania 36 in the lurch, why not combine SummerSlam and WrestleMania to make Summer Mania? Keep up the adequately adequate work. Love you guys. Stay safe.
Not WrestleSlam.
No, apparently not.
It's unfortunate.
Someone did suggest you could call it Summerfest.
Yes, very good.
Finally pay off that Jeremy Piven botch.
I think, in terms of branding, you don't want to rename these events. SummerSlam and WrestleMania kind of sell themselves. They are like having a wrestler that's super over. You can sell WrestleMania based on the strength of the name. That is an incredible feat of, decades of building up a brand. Well done, WWE. So, no, I don't think it's a good idea to merge the names. And I also don't think it's a good idea to merge the events.
Well, that actually leads us into Matt Field's question, who says, just want to say well done for the No Fans Monday show. Some great wrestling and great comedy from you boys. Thinking of you, Chopper Pete and Luke Owen. Neck still hurts. Thanks, Kalin. My question is, with WrestleMania most likely happening in the Performance Center, losing that massive spectacle and taking away people from WrestleMania moments, if Steve does decide to leave us alone by summer's time, should they turn SummerSlam into WrestleMania and have it in a stadium, amazing stage and set with the amazing entrances for wrestlers, with the massive WrestleMania-type crowd? Thank you for your hard work.
I think as soon as you are able to, and society's back to a point where you can, you put on WrestleMania. And that's your big homecoming. You don't do it with a Raw or this. You go, boom. Well, actually, but it might have to be Madison Square Garden. You do it in Madison Square Garden.
Where it all began.
Yeah.
Andrew Bayless, this is a really interesting question. I phased out of watching try that again to put my teeth back in. I phased out watching wrestling in 2007 and only started watching again in early 2016, partly because of WrestleTalk. During that time in the wrestling wilderness, I obviously missed a lot, so didn't understand the huge popularity of wrestlers like Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, as I'd missed all their best moments. My question is, are there any wrestlers that got big while you checked out of wrestling and you cannot understand the appeal of?
Oh, that's a great question. I wasn't out of wrestling long enough, I would say, to sort of completely skip a few guys' whole early career thing. But I remember when I first got back into wrestling after the hiatus, because every fan has a hiatus. When you jump from teenage years, you have like a break of 2 to 4 years when you just do other things, and then you come back to it. If you stay an adult fan, Eddie Guerrero, I'm ashamed to say, I remember being told that he passed away, and I was like, oh, that's a real shame. And my mate, Pollard, was like, no, he's the biggest wrestler in the country. I was like, what? Eddie Guerrero?
Yeah.
Because when I was watching it, he was mid-card at best.
Mamacita!
Not in his talent, but just the way he was presented and pushed. I didn't know what any of those words meant, by the way, when I was experiencing that situation. But yeah, I have since gone back and rewatched everything, and the guy's incredible.
I've got two that jump out in mind for me. The first one's the JBL character, because I'd stopped watching after Hogan won the title in 2002. That's when I checked down. I didn't get back until 2004, so I missed JBL as like SmackDown's longest running champion. So like JBL going to the Hall of Fame, and I was like, oh my god, what an all-time great heel. I've watched it back, and I'm like, it's fine, like it's okay. But the other one is the Doctor of Thugonomics. Like a friend of mine who was still watching wrestling at the time said like, oh, you got to check out this guy John Cena. He's so funny. And I watched a clip of it and I was like, yeah, and this is why I don't watch wrestling anymore.
Wow.
And then I've since gone back and watched it and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't really like this character. I only started liking Cena when he won the belts and became a different character.
Yeah, I didn't even like that bit. I only started liking John Cena in about 2016.
Yeah, I mean, I quickly turned off Cena. Like after a few months, I'm like, oh no, you technically are still the same character. And I don't really want you as champion. What have we got next? This comes in from Jeffrey, who says, just a remark really. I feel one way in which the Undertaker AJ feud works, particularly with him being biker American badass Taker, is, at least to me, it feels similar to the OC.
I see what you mean, because Gallows and Anderson do feel a bit leathery.
Yeah.
They've got the leather jackets.
Yeah, and the leather pants.
Yeah, there is definitely a biker look to them. I don't think that's enough to build a feud over. If anything, you would think that would mean he would be joining them.
Dwayne Cooley says, hello Luke and Ollie, or whoever's hosting this week. I sent a question a few weeks ago about AEW being around about 8 years ago and who could jump ship when top name contracts expired.
Great question.
And other promotions WWE around like TNA, blah, 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 blah. Just kidding, I meant CM Punk, because he would have left in 2014. And if AEW was a company then, he could have just jumped straight across.
Oh my God, yeah.
Punk's exit from WWE would have brought him to AEW at least in 2015, once he spent a year away from wrestling. It's a bit of a question mark, obviously we don't know.
Yeah.
He was so burned out on wrestling, he might not have wanted to go back.
And injured.
Yeah.
I think he would have, even if AEW was a very viable competitor to WWE, I think he would have, he seems like quite a stubborn guy, where he would have just gone, nope, I'm done with wrestling now. And he wanted to do MMA as well.
Yeah. And Dwayne does clarify here, it's like, granted, they would have to give him a very concrete offer, not meeting him face to face at a coffee shop with a money deal and details on what he would be doing. Jonathan says, hello WrestleTalk crew. I hope you are well and staying safe in this excellent health. I was watching NXT and I remembered how the Gargano Ciampa final chapter seemed to be cursed, and I had to laugh because this time it can't happen again because of Steve Corino. Guess what I'm saying it is? It's their fault for the mess we're in. Obviously, I'm kidding. Just want to say something ludicrous to brighten the day.
Ludicrously achieved.
Yes, we were actually joking about that on No Fans Monday. We were like, oh my God, I cannot believe Ciampa Gargano is not going to happen again.
It's insane. The bad luck. It's like Samoa Joe trying to have a WrestleMania match.
And lastly from Marcus, hello WrestleTalk. Have any of you guys seen Dark Side of the Ring? A, what did you think about the show? B, what season 2 episodes are you most fascinated in seeing? And C, what topics do you think they should cover in season 3?
I haven't seen it. Well, actually, no, I've seen the Bruiser Brody one, which
the
I thought
first
was
episode.
very good. Very good.
So good. Yeah, like the archive that they've got for that show is amazing. The interviews are amazing.
It's quite shocking.
Yeah. The Fabulous Moolah episode's really interesting. It's a really balanced take on sort of the Moolah controversy. The Montreal Screwjob episode is very good. The Randy Elizabeth episode is not. I didn't really expect that sort of story to be told in this sort of like, you know, the untold stories. But I did kind of like sigh a little bit when Hulk's ex-wife showed up, and I'm like, oh, of course you're here. Anything for a payday for you. Season 2, they have got a stacked, or like they have gone hell for leather in series 2, because you've got Benoit, you've got Owen Hart, you've got the Jimmy Snuka thing.
Wow.
Like you're doing some.
Those are heavy hitters.
Exactly. And I was talking to my wife about this. I was like, I don't know what they're going to do for season 3 now, because they're spunking their whole load on this second season.
Steroid trial, maybe.
That's a great one, actually. Yeah, the steroid trial.
Screwjob again.
With a few more years perspective,
Yeah.
we can just have Jim Cornette and Vince Russo argue about it again. I would, if you're going to watch one episode, it's I don't think you learn much new about it, but it is worth watching for the intercuts between Jim Cornette telling a story and Vince Russo telling a story, because it would just be Jim Cornette saying like, here's what I said at that party, you know, when it was just me, Vince, and Vince Russo. And I told him about this historical event of the double cross. It comes to Vince Russo going like, I must have been in the bathroom. I never remember him telling that story. I just remember saying we could double cross him.
Well, bro, that's all we've got time for today. But thank you everyone ever so much for getting in touch on the Patreon mailbags. At this time more than ever, we really appreciate your support. So if you go over to Patreon, check out those exclusive little tiers that give you content like WrestleTalk Extra, which we're recording next week.
Exactly, yeah. Bonus podcast where we dive into old pay-per-views for like 3 to 4 hours. Particularly, it's over 4 hours, but it's a WrestleMania. And it is a WrestleMania this month. It's going to be WrestleMania 26 for the month of March. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about with that one, because you get Bret Hart versus Vince, which went down swimmingly.
Yeah, so check that over there. But for the meantime, please click the videos that have just appeared on the desk to catch up with the latest awesome WrestleTalk things, and this button right here, which will take you to Patreon. I've been Ollie Davis, this has been Luke Owen, and that was wrestling.